There you go. Are we all set, Liz? I think the audio cut out real quick. Please hold.
All right, I'm back.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Sorry, everyone. I pressed, I thought I was turning up the volume on my headset and I ended the audio. So we're back. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties of virtual learning. So thanks again for joining me in my kitchen. Today we are doing our first of a two-part holiday series. So today we're going to do 2 simple appetizer recipes. If you are having people over these holidays, or if you're asked to bring a dish to somebody's home, these are 2 very simple recipes that I really enjoy this time of year. One is vegetarian and the other does have meat in it. So we will start by making these chicken mushroom meatballs. I personally love this recipe because they're extremely flavorful. They're pretty low in calories. We're using lean ground chicken and mushrooms as the main mix. They are also obviously have hardly any carbohydrates in them, which is very trendy right now. A lot of people are often looking to cut carbs, or at least, you know, a lot of times when you go to parties, it seems like most of the spread is very high in fat or high in carbs, like dips with breads or, you know, desserts, things like that. So this is going to be a very filling recipe that has a lot of protein. You can also, we're going to make them mini today, like little mini meatballs. And we're going to just do like heat up a simple marinara sauce as a dip. But you could make this recipe into a patty later on in the year and do like chicken burgers with it. You could make full-size meatballs and serve them on a sandwich or with pasta. So it's a pretty versatile mix. So I already have my mushrooms sauteing in the back just to give those a head start. You want to saute them a lot. You want to get a nice color on them. That's going to add a lot of flavor and really cook out all the extra moisture. So I'm going to add a little bit more onion. This is about a half an onion. I already have a little bit cooking in there, but I just wanted to show you how I give this a quick chop, and then I'll add it to the rest of my veggies that are cooking. In my sink, this is just a good tip. I have a plastic bag. I don't know if you can see it. And I just put it in my sink, and that's like my garbage bag. So then as I'm cooking, I throw everything in there, and it just makes it really simple to, at the end, when you're done, toss that out. So I have an onion. I've cut it in half. I did leave the root on the tip. You don't need to get this super finely diced because I'm going to put it in the food processor. But what I'm going to do is a lot of people cut their onions this way first. You can, but the striations or the lines on the onion will do all the work for you. So I'm just going to turn my knife and kind of follow the lines of the onion's natural carving. So when you get to the side, you're going to kind of have to turn your knife sideways. And a little bit of knife safety. You really want to put that knife right between your hand. I see a lot of people put their fingertip over the knife. That's not really great for your wrist. And you don't have as much control. So you really want, you know, a thumb on one side and a curved index finger on the other. And then I'm going to tuck these fingers back and just simply push the onion, you know, kind of just rock my knife back and forth. And it's going to give me a nice mince. And everything but the tip, I just throw in my garbage bag. I'm going to add this right to my sauteing mushrooms to get these started. Again, the recipe for this does say to add your onions and garlic raw, which you can totally do because they will cook down in the oven when you cook your meatballs. But I like to give my onions and garlic a little bit of a head start personally. So I'm going to show you, we used 1.5 pounds of mushrooms to 1 pound of chicken. So it seems like a lot, and it was a ton of mushrooms to begin with. But the reason why your mushrooms are going to cook down so much, you start with I started, my saute pan was almost full to the top. And I don't know if you can see it now, but you can see the bottom of it. So it definitely cooks down a lot. And I just have that with a little bit of olive or canola oil on kind of medium heat, and you just really let it go until all the water comes out. So a good tip, I eat the stems of my mushrooms because there's no need to waste those. Sometimes I just chop off the bottom if it seems very fibrous. One of the most common mistakes that people make with mushrooms is they wash them under running water. So when you do that, mushrooms are like a sponge. They absorb all of the water that you're washing them with, and they'll never really get that nice caramelized color. So all you need to do is just take a damp paper towel or kitchen rag, and you really just wipe the surface and just take off kind of all of that surface dirt that's on them. And that's really it. I never run them underwater. And then all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna slice off the tip of the stem, and we'll compost. I mean, if you really wanna get creative, you can save all your vegetable trimmings and make vegetable stock, or anytime you make a chicken stock or anything, you could throw those in, but that's up to you. And then I just did a rough chop. So these are pretty large mushrooms, and you just wanted to get a thin slice on those and then add them to my saute pan. These ones I'm actually going to reserve for dinner tonight. I'm going to put them just on my counter. I'll probably saute those later. I don't want to add them to the ones that I already have going because they won't be as cooked. So that's really it. You can see that they've gotten this really nice dark color. And again, we're going to put them in the food processor. So it doesn't matter, you know, how finely you dice them at this stage. It's just important that you try to get everything similar sized when you're cooking, just for even cooking times, not so much for any other reason, but if you have really big pieces of mushrooms, those won't cook as fast as the small ones. So the next thing we're going to add, it calls for just about 1 tablespoon of garlic. I never measure garlic. I'm Italian, so we just freeform it. You know, if we go, so I'm going to use 3 cloves. They're pretty small. These 2 are pretty small. It's about a tablespoon. The easiest way to do garlic, I leave it in the skin and I put it on my cutting board. Take the fat end of your knife and then just with your palm, give it a nice press. And your garlic will just pop right out of the skin. Another way you could do it, I've seen a lot of people, like they'll put it in a jar with a lid and shake it, or a Tupperware. That's another way to get the skins off. I find this way, the smashing way is easier. The skins come right off, and then your garlic is like pre-chopped already. You don't have to cut it that much because it's already done a lot of the work smashing. So I'm just gonna give this, again, just like a rough chop. The garlic only needs about 30 seconds to a minute in the pan. You don't wanna burn it, but you could add it raw. When I cook like beef meatballs that I'm making in tomato sauce, I add my garlic raw to the meat, and it kind of just steams in the meat while it's cooking. But these, again, are a little bit of a quicker cooking time. So I'm gonna just throw it in the pan just to give it a little bit of a head start. This goes right in. All right, and while that's going, the rest of this we're gonna make super simple in the food processor. So I'll give that about 30 seconds, and I'll just kind of talk to you about the rest of the ingredients. We're gonna be adding breadcrumbs, some Parmesan cheese, eggs, fresh parsley, salt and pepper, and that's really it. I'm serving this today with a marinara sauce as like a little bit of a dip, so people can kind of take a meatball and a toothpick or something, or put a little on their plate. Again, I typically make my own sauce, but it's really not necessary these days. I just wanted to show you 2 different brands and kind of what to look for when you're looking for store-bought sauces. So a lot of store-bought sauces have added sugar, and you don't need that. So I always look on the label, and as long as, like this one is Italian tomatoes, onion, or extra virgin olive oil, garlic, basil, salt, and black pepper, right? So it's very clean. There's no like citric acid or monoglutamine, whatever you can't pronounce, right? It's just simple, clean ingredients. This one happens to be a local tomato sauce from Brooklyn. So I typically, at my store, I just look for whenever they're on sale. They could be very expensive, you know, $8, $9 a jar. I never pay that. I go for something that's definitely under $5. A lot of times I get them like $2.99. This is a double-sized jar. This was like $3.99 on sale. So when they're on sale, I read the ingredients. If it is a clean label, I'll buy a jar or 2 and keep them in the fridge, or I'm sorry, in the pantry for a quick meal, right? If I wanted to just make these meatballs with some pasta, I have a sauce already done. If you want to use this as a soup base, if you're making a vegetable soup, you could dump a jar of marinara right in there. It just adds a lot of flavor. Again, not a lot of calories. So can you see my food processor over here, or should I move it?
Oh, if we can move a little bit more center, yeah,
Okay.
that'd be great.
No problemo.
Also,
Sorry,
just
I don't have an island.
no problem. 2 quick questions. For the sauces, is there a brand that you would recommend in terms of like a clean one to look at?
Yeah, so these are both clean. This is Michael's of Brooklyn. You could also buy it online at michaelsofbrooklyn.com. This one is a very inexpensive. This jar cost me, I think it was $1.99. It's Paisana. And again, it's hardly, you know, I read you the ingredients, so it's very clean. Rayo's, I think, makes a great sauce, but theirs is pretty expensive. It's like the cheapest I've ever gotten that is usually like $4.99, but when it does go on sale, I enjoy the flavor of that one. Victoria is another one that goes on sale a lot. That's also a clean label, but really the Ragouts and the Progressos, those brands tend to have added sugar, and they also tend to have some like I don't like to buy things when the label says like spices, right? And I'm not so sure what the spices are. Me particularly, I'm not like a lover of so much of oregano. So a lot of times, like some of the sauces, I think they put too much oregano. So I like to read the label. This one just has basil in it, but that is a good question. Those are a few of my favorite brands. But again, I'm pretty much like a sale shopper. So I just buy what's on sale and what the label looks good. Okay, so you can see me here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so again, I'm gonna take my mushrooms. And again, this is 1.5 pounds of mushrooms just sliced up. And I cooked in that 1/4 cup of onion, just a little bit. And I added my garlic. And again, you can use olive oil, you can use light olive oil, you can use canola oil. I tend to use canola oil for a lot of high temperature cooking because olive oil and extra virgin olive oil does not like to get hot. It has a very low smoke point. So sorry for the noise. I'm gonna pulse this because we want these to be, the mushrooms are gonna add the moisture to the meat. Chicken and turkey, especially if it's super lean, can be very dry, as can if you use like you could use like a 90%, whatever, 97% ground beef in this recipe as well. But the leaner the meat, the drier. So the mushrooms are gonna add a lot of texture to the meatballs, flavor and moisture. So I'm just gonna give these a pulse. And that's about it. I don't want them to be like completely pulverized, but I do kind of want them to be, I don't want to have like big pieces of mushroom or onions. I'm going to scrape down the sides a little bit. I have a couple of bigger pieces of onion. If you're like me, I never use that, you know, that like stopper thing. So just put your hand over it. Otherwise, I've had several accidents in my kitchen without doing that. I was making a video for a pie, and I was making the pie dough, and I forgot to put my hand over it, and the flour shot everywhere. So this is an extra lean ground chicken. It is 98% fat-free. If you use, just keep in mind, if you use the regular ground chicken or regular ground turkey, it's usually like a 93%. That's very similar to a ground beef in terms of calories and fat. So I always, especially when I'm doing something that's blended with some vegetables, I'm gonna go for the extra lean because again, we're adding that moisture with the mushrooms. So this is 1 pound, and how simple is this? It's right in this little easy package. I don't even have to touch it. Well, I guess I do. And I'm gonna just give it a quick blending start in the food processor, but you can use a big bowl if you want. I'm just trying to use less dishes. The less dishes in my book, the better. So now I'm going to add 1.25 cups of breadcrumbs. I'm using seasoned. You can use plain. You can use panko. You can use whatever you have. I happen to always just have the seasoned, so I'm using that. 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese. Again, I'm using Pecorino Romano because that's what I use for everything. Pecorino tends to be a little bit saltier, so you'll want to add less salt. And then 2 eggs that I've just given a little bit of work to, just beaten them lightly so that way the food processor can do less work. And then some fresh parsley. So I like to keep my herbs when I get them home from the grocery store. I usually wash them and then just put them in a tall drinking glass. They last a little bit longer that way. If you have a windowsill with some sun, you can put them there as well. Oftentimes I also just will chop them all up and throw them in little Ziplocs and freeze them. And then you can add them to dishes frozen. They work just as well. So this recipe calls for 1/3 of a cup. Again, something I don't measure is herbs. It's just, for me, it's not a very easy thing to measure. So I'm going to do a nice handful. And what we're going to do is put them on my board, and I'm going to roll them up like they're a cigar. So really tight. And then my knife is going to just rock back and forth. So I have the tip of my knife on the board, and I'm just slowly kind of rolling this through one way. And then I'm going to fold them up and kind of turn them on my cutting board. And then I'm just going to run my knife through it roughly. When your herbs are really wet, I find it's kind of harder to chop them and they get a little bit like mushy and bruised. So it's nice if you can wash them right when you get home usually, and then keep them already washed so you don't have to wash them right before. To me, it's just like they look less, you know what I mean? When they look kind of like wilty when you cut them, like it doesn't look as fresh. That happens to me when I wash them right before I use them. So anyways, I'm gonna add 1/3 of a cup of this chopped parsley. And again, even though I'm putting this in the food processor is really just gonna be mixing this lightly. So I wanna give it a pretty good chop. And that's about 1/3 of a cup, just kind of a nice handful. Again, it's gonna add lots of color, and parsley is a very bland herb. To me, it just has like a nice little lemony flavor. In terms of salt for this recipe, it only calls for 1/4 of a teaspoon. The cheese is going to have add a lot of salt to it, that salty kick. If you're using Parmesan, you might want to stick with the full 1/4 teaspoon. For me, I actually added a little bit less because I did use that pecorino and it's saltier. And then we're just going to add some black pepper. And that's about it. That's pretty simple ingredients. So really, I think the only thing I had to buy for this was the chicken and the mushrooms. I had everything else. So I'm going to lightly pulse it. Sorry. It's the worst part.
Now,
Okay.
Liz, I don't have a food processor. So I know you mentioned you can use a bowl for some of this stuff, but as for if I were interested in buying a food processor, what is there a brand of that you think like you've had good experiences with?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to transfer mine to a bowl right now because I don't think it's getting it thoroughly mixed. So for you, this is a Hamilton Beach. I think this was like $30 on Amazon. I got like a pretty inexpensive one because again, I don't use it all the time. I do have, sorry guys, this is real life, but I will show you. This is like a little food chopper that you can get at the grocery store, like in the aisle with the baking supplies. And this was $10. I use that thing all the time. So like if I'm just like chopping an onion or garlic, I'll do it in there. So you could do your mushrooms in that just in like batches. Or if you don't even need a food processor, you could just dice them really small to begin with. Or you could cook them first and then dice them on a cutting board. It's just a little bit more work that way. I'm actually going to end up putting this into a bowl because I don't think it got super mixed. My basin isn't that big in my food processor. I feel like we all have these gloves now from COVID. We were like ruined and we now wear gloves everywhere. My dad actually happens to own a deli, so I have food gloves. I use them sometimes with poultry just because I don't like to like keep washing my hands every 4 seconds. So I'm just going to put these in, and the mixture is going to be a little bit wetter than your typical meatloaf or meatball mix because again, we have all of those veggies in there. So this is a great way too if you're cooking for kids and you're trying to sneak in some extra vegetables. You could always blend in like a little bit of spinach in these or something like that. So that's it. This is done. So what I'm gonna do now is get this board out of the way. And I just have a baking sheet that I lined with some tin foil. You could use parchment paper. You don't even need to do that, but I like to. You want to do about, I think like a 2-ounce meatball is a good size. You could definitely make them, again, smaller or bigger. Again, the bigger or smaller that you make them, I might make them a little smaller for today so they cook a little quicker while I'm making the other appetizer. These will be done. But again, that's up to you, how big or small. These are also really great in soups. If you wanted to make like a chicken and rice soup with little meatballs, like the chicorina, this would be a good recipe for that. So again, that's it. You're just gonna ball these up, get them on a tray, and we're baking them. My oven is preheated for 400 degrees. Depending on your size, for a 2-ounce meatball, they're about 15, 20 minutes. Again, the smaller that you make them, the faster that they will cook. So I'm gonna get a couple more on my tray and then I'll just pop these in the oven and I'll make the rest later. Are there any questions so far, or has anybody tried a recipe similar to this?
No questions as of right now, but I mean, I'm a huge mushroom fan. That's like one of my favorite things in the world. So I'm psyched to try it.
Yeah, and I actually bought a 2.5-pound like container of mushrooms for 99 cents.
Nice.
And the ground chicken was like $4. So this is like a very affordable recipe too that you can make for a crowd because it's going to make a bunch of them. So yeah, the mushrooms not only are inexpensive, but they, you know, a lot of us are looking to eat less meat or to eat a little bit more plant friendly. So these are kind of blended recipes. You could also, if you didn't want to use mushrooms, you could blend your meat with lentils. That's another good tip for blended, you know, especially if you're trying to eat a little bit less meat.
I think it's a great idea to add the veggies or the lentils to the meat.
Yeah, it's like really simple, you know, especially if you're so used to eating beef meatballs. These aren't going to be exactly the same as a beef meatball, but to me, it's like a nice change because I'm just so used to eating like a traditional meatball. Okay. So that's it. So I'm going to pop these just on a center rack. And we'll make the other salad, and then these should be done. I'm going to put this over here. I'm going to give my hands a quick wash. Okay, so our next recipe, I've done a little bit of the work for us. And I'm just going to actually flip over my cutting board because I cut onions on this side, so we'll use the other side. And I just have like a little placemat here that helps keep your board steady. So our next recipe that we're going to make is a stuffed endive leaf, which sounds fancy, but this is endive if you've never seen it. It is a bitter green. It's similar to kind of like a radicchio or something. It has like a nice bitter taste. But the great thing about it is that when you peel off these leaves, they're perfect to stuff, which we're going to do today. Or you could also use these as any kind of a dipper. So even if you were serving, you know, like a buffalo chicken dip, it's nice to put out a different type of, instead of just crackers or bread, this is like another option that people could fill up with whatever dip that you're making. So we are going to stuff these today. It is a winter vegetable, so it's very much in season right now. You could also, I like to slice this really thin and mix it in with salads, especially if you have a salad with like dried cranberries or something sweet. This will be a very nice contrast. So we are going to make a beet and apple feta salad that we're going to stuff inside the endive leaves. Again, this salad recipe, you could just make it whole, right? You could just eat it on top of, it's really great on top of arugula or mixed in with any other green, but this is a nice party appetizer. And it's also really nice to we'll lay them out on this platter because people can just, you know, especially now where you don't want to be sharing a ton of utensils and things like that, people can just kind of pick up their own leaf and go. So it's a very simple recipe. So this is, I use golden beets, and I use golden beets for two reasons. One, I like the color, and two, they don't bleed all over and get your cutting board. Like I feel like when I cook red beets, they get everywhere. My skin turns pink. We're also mixing in some feta cheese with this recipe. so the cheese will turn pink, which is totally fine, but I just decided to use golden today. So this is what the bunch looks like. Don't throw out the leaves, wash them really well, and you can saute them. Just to saute them, what I usually do, because you don't want to eat. The stem is okay, but it's a little bit bitter. So if you hold the leaf by the stem and then pull, your leafy green will come right off and your stems can go into your garbage bowl. So again, wash these really well. They're great sauteed with a little olive oil and garlic, or you can add them to soups or stews and just like you would any other type of green. So I've already, let me get those out actually. I've already roasted my beets ahead of time, but I will show you how I did that. You can also purchase pre-steamed beets in the grocery store. They're in the refrigerated section typically, either where they have, a lot of times they're where they have like the wonton wrappers, or they might be near the beets, kind of on the top. There's a brand called Love My Beet, which is just, there's no added ingredients. They're just steamed and peeled. It's a great time saver. They only usually have purple ones, which I didn't get those today. But anyway, all you need to do to get your beets ready is you just cut right off the tip. These are beautiful. I left the stem on it. You just wrap it up in a piece of tin foil with a little bit of canola oil, rub it really quickly. I roasted these in a 400-degree oven or 350-degree oven, I think, for about 35 to 45 minutes. As soon as you can stick a fork in them, they're done. So I gave it a quick wash on the outside, wrapped them in tin foil, put them on a cookie sheet, and just baked them off. So when they are done, they look like this. You can see it. And then all you need to do to get that skin off is just take a paper towel, give it a light rub, and the skin will come right off. So there is no need. A lot of people peel the beets beforehand, and that's a lot of extra work, especially on the purple ones, because the coloring gets everywhere. So just like that, the skin is completely off. And then you just want to slice these into little cubes. So you're going to mix them with apples. So you want them to be roughly the same size of whatever apple that however small you're going to cut the apples. I'm making mine about, I don't know, 1/2 to 1/4 inch little pieces. You just want to give yourself a nice little rough chop there. So here are the rest of my beets that I've already pre-cooked. I'm just going to add these into a bowl. And then next we're going to add some apples. So apple's going to add a little bit of a fresh taste and also a nice crunch. It's about 1-to-1 ratio, so it's a little less apple than beet. I'm going to probably end up adding, I'm cutting this recipe a little bit in half because it's obviously just me right now. I didn't want to make the full thing. So this is called a Lucy Glow apple. It's a new variety that I've recently stumbled upon. It's actually a variety of Honeycrisp, but the inside actually has red hues in it. So you could use whatever kind of apple you like. Granny Smith would be great, Honeycrisp, really any apple. Normally I do not peel apples, but for this recipe I'm going to. I don't want the skin in there. And again, this is going right into my little garbage bag. And then to cut this apple, all I'm going to do is just cut straight down the core. So cut out my core. And then I'm going to try to cut these into a similar size as my beet. So just small slices. Throw those right in my bowl. This half seemed a little big, so I'm going to cut it once horizontally. I don't know if you can see that, but see how this apple has like some red flesh. Pretty cool. Okay, so that looks about right. And then the next thing that we're going to add to this is unsalted, roasted, and shelled sunflower seeds. So the sunflower seeds are going to add some texture, it's about 1/4 cup. And they're also going to add lots of vitamin E, and they're going to add a little bit more protein to the dish. You could substitute a nut if you'd like. Like I think almonds would be really great in this, or walnuts go really well with beets, but sunflower seeds are also a nice option. And then I'm going to add a little bit of feta cheese. This is 1 ounce of feta. I tend to buy my feta. I prefer to buy it in the block and crumble it myself. I just think it tastes a little bit fresher that way than buying the whole bunch. And then for dill, This is some fresh dill. Dill has a really nice, like a very unique smell. It's kind of ranchy in a way. So it just calls for 2 tablespoons. And again, we're going to do that cigar where we roll it up and then we slice it thin. And I want this pretty finely minced because I want it to really incorporate well into the salad. And then we're going to use some bigger pieces and garnish the trim on the top. So I'm going to add my dill. And then this is a super simple dressing. And you could use this dressing recipe for anything. So it's a little bit of honey. It's going to be about 1.5 tablespoons of honey. I like to add a little bit of sweetness to dressings because you're going to pair it with acid. So we're using lemon juice as our acid today. But if you were using, you could substitute a white balsamic would be really nice in this if you didn't have any lemon on hand. So I'm just going to add about 1 tablespoon and a little bit more of honey. And again, all sugars are created equal. So I feel like a lot of times we try to, think that we need to have agave or maple or more expensive sugar. Your body doesn't know the difference. So we treat sugars all the same. So they're all the same amount of calories and they're digested the same way. Honey just happens to be a little bit more natural because it's less processed, but calorie for calorie, it's the same as table sugar. So if you wanted to add a little bit of sugar to this, that'd be fine. We're adding an acid. So I'm going to do fresh lemon. We need about 3 tablespoons, which is about 1/2 of a lemon. I'm just squeezing it over my hand so I can catch all the seeds. And I actually put the lemon peels down my garbage disposal. It's a natural way to clean it. It smells really nice that way. And then I'm going to add a little bit of black pepper, a pinch of salt, so it calls for about 1/8 of a teaspoon. I'm going to use a fine ground salt for this one. I used kosher salt in other recipes. And then we need about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So I am using extra virgin olive oil for this recipe because we are eating the oil raw. If you were I don't like to cook with my extra virgin olive oil because it's very expensive and it has a very low smoke point. But when you're eating it raw, you really want to use a high quality oil for that. And that is really it. Those are all the ingredients. I'm just going to give this a little bit of a toss. And again, the red beets would be really pretty in this recipe. They tend to stain the cheese, but you can use whatever you have. If you have candy striped or you could use canned beets for this. I find the canned beets are a little bit mushy, but totally fine, whatever you have. So again, here's my endive. All I'm going to do is just cut off the core at the bottom. And that is just going to allow me to pull these leaves off. So you're just going to take a little bit of your apple mixture, your apple beet mixture, as you can see, and put them right in the little leaves. I'm going to kind of do mine every other way. Has anybody had endive before? I feel like it's a very underutilized vegetable.
I mean, my girlfriend and I, we typically make shrimp tacos. We try to find some sort of shell to hold them in. We never used that before, but seeing how easy it is to just make the little boats there, that might be our something new to try out.
Yeah, it's a little bit more of like a bitter taste than like a butter lettuce, which kind of tastes like nothing, but it's also very affordable. I think this was like 75 cents or something. Where butter lettuce, when you buy those nice leaf lettuces, the gem lettuce, they can be, quite expensive. This is like I feel like it's like an old fashioned vegetable.
And they're coming out very uniform, which is nice.
Yeah, so I'm trying my best. I'm not the best at like making things look nice. I make things taste good, but I'm not the best at presenting. So I'm going to add a couple more. And then all you need to do is I'm going to pull off like little fronds of the dill and just kind of garnish with that. Dill, again, like I said, it has a very unique flavor. It's popular with lox and, if they use it to cure salmon. So if you've had dill before, you know it, but I like to let people know, what to expect when they see my appetizer. So I think we have a couple more minutes on these meatballs. They're probably not 100%. Oh, you know what I forgot to do was warm up the sauce. So I'm going to just do that. Just put a little bit of this in a saucepan. So this is like, we've been cooking for about 35 minutes. And again, I did cheat a little bit and do some prep beforehand, but I feel like you could have all of this done in an hour. So you could make 2 really great appetizers in an hour, which is pretty good these days. So I'm just gonna finish plating up these and then we'll check our meatballs and see how they come out. So as you get to the middle route, they'll be a little bit smaller, but you could just kind of keep trimming that stem. That's about it.
Liz, can you suggest another herb if you didn't want to use dill in this recipe?
Yeah, you could use parsley. That would be nice and plain. I actually think mint would go really well because I love mint with feta. Have you ever had fattoush salad before at like a Lebanese restaurant?
Yes.
So fattoush, yeah, so they use mint in with the greens and like they have feta in that. And I love that like mint flavor. So I think mint would go really well. You could probably use basil, I think would be nice too. But I would probably stick with the mint or the parsley. This just, I don't know why we decided to use dill in this recipe. But anyway, so here's my platter. Can you see it? Should I move it closer?
Awesome.
So it's just a really nice little, appetizer. Again, like I said, I'm probably going to take my leftovers and throw them over a bed of arugula and have that as like a side salad for dinner tonight. But again, just a pretty simple recipe. And I'm going to check my meatballs. Ooh, they look almost done actually. So your best friend is your food thermometer. So these should cook to 165 to know that they are safe to eat. Yep, and we're at 168. So these are actually done and ready to go. I'm just gonna pull these guys out of the oven. I didn't, all my trivets are in the other room. So I'm just going to put this down so I don't burn my table. And that's it. So they get a nice little golden brown. Again, we're not frying them, so there's no mess. I hate when I fry meatballs and it makes a huge mess and I have to clean the stove. Use this little baby tong. Again, just put these right on my platter. It's okay, they might stick a little bit to the foil, but don't worry about it. And the marinara sauce takes just a few minutes. Again, you can make your own. You could use like a vodka sauce would be nice with these too, a little higher in calories, but a little extra flavor. And that's about it. I'm gonna just throw these on a plate. And again, your friends who are, I know if you joined our holiday lunch and learn or let's chat a few weeks ago, we were talking about buffets and kind of navigating holiday spreads and, you know, trying to bring a safe option with you when you go to a party to make sure that there's something so you're not going to totally binge when you get there. So this is a great little recipe that you can also bring with you so that you know that there's something healthy that you can fill up on. And then again, I just have this little, nice little bowl for my sauce in. And we are done. So it was like 2 pans, 2 pots, a saute pan, and everything else went in the oven, so I don't have to clean that. And here's my little tray of meatballs. I think that's it. So we're right about 45 minutes, and we're pretty much all done.
Now for the meatballs, like I'm a kind of person who likes to make in bulk and then freeze if I can. So if I were to freeze these, would they would anything be lost from them, or do they?
No, yeah, they'll last a few months in your freezer. Yeah, definitely. I would say you can freeze them. You know, I like to have things, if they're not like vacuum sealed, I tend to have them like within the 6-month mark in the freezer, 3 to 6, just because they tend to get a little freezer burn. But I would just make a big batch of them and then cool them down. Once they're completely cool, put them in a Ziploc bag, airtight, and they're great in the freezer. And then you could just take them out, you know, defrost them in your fridge and just either put it back in the oven, or you could even, if you wanted to cook them in the tomato sauce too, that would be really nice. So it would give them a little bit more flavor.
Nice. No, these both look delicious.
I know, that's what we're having for dinner tonight. Get ready, we're having meatballs and we're having little appetizers for dinner. But I'm going to probably cook. Yeah, I think I'm gonna serve these tonight with just like a little side of pasta and a salad.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah.
Now, is there any sauce you'd recommend drizzling on the leaves?
So these, we did that honey lemon kind of vinaigrette. So that would actually, those are pretty good on their own. I do have, these would be really nice on it. These are like flavored balsamics. This one's a
that's what I was thinking.
pomegranate balsamic. Yeah, I think that would be really nice if you wanted to like drizzle it over the top for a little presentation. These are like nice and thick. They're a little bit more syrupy. I have a pomegranate one. And I have a fig. That would be nice as well.
Awesome.
I like those little flavored oils. Yeah, or balsamics.
Great. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna try one of these
Does
out.
anybody think that they might, yeah, I was gonna say, does anybody think they might make these recipes this time around?
I will, definitely.
I will
Good.
make
I
the
know, I'm really
the
excited.
vegetarian one.
A vegetarian?
Yes, I'm not a meat eater, so I would definitely make
So
the
you-
meats.
You could substitute for the chicken if you did mushrooms, and then you could do mushrooms, cook your lentils down, or you could use any type of bean and then just blend those in the food processor. You might need to add a little bit more breadcrumb to hold them together,
Yes.
but then that would be like a veggie meatball, which would be really nice too.
Yeah, a chickpea flour would go very well with that.
Yeah. Just, yep, I think that would be really great. Add a little protein though. You would need, you know, some sort
Yes.
of bean or something. Will give it a nice texture. Actually, if you just use chickpeas and ground them kind of coarsely, that would give like a nice chewy texture. Yeah, to make
Yes.
them vegetarian.
Yes.
Great.
All right.
Well, next week we're going to be making 2 holiday desserts. So we're going to be making a no-bake granola bar that has a few toppings, but you can really use whatever toppings you have. I'm going to be using some cranberries and chocolate chips, but you could use what you'd like. And then we are also making a low-fat gingerbread cookie, which is a take on a holiday classic, but it's a little bit less fat, so it's a little bit better for you option. So we'll be making those 2 desserts next week. If you're same time, if you're interested in joining, please do.
Thank you.
Yes, and I'll be sending out, as always, I'll be sending out the information for that ahead of time. And I'll also be sending out, obviously, the link to this meeting along with the ingredients and recipes for the meals we just saw. So if you want to play this back and you want to pull up the PDFs that I'll send out, then you can obviously go ahead. And also, if you go ahead and make any of these meals, make sure to send me and Liz pictures of how it turns out. I'll definitely love to share it with the entire office to kind of show off what we've been making at home. But again, everyone, thank you so much for coming. If you have any questions, concerns, any sort of comments for Liz, let me know. I'll pass them along. And as always, if there's anything you want to see from these virtual events, let us know as well. We can obviously have talks offline to make that a reality for everyone. So again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Liz, again. That was great. I'm now starving. Thank you for that. And, and obviously, everyone have a great rest of your day, great rest of your weekend. Stay safe. And
Sure. Thank you. You too.
all right,
Thank you very much.
have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.